Hey, people. So, it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, and I'm back. Um, I had a question asked of me a little while ago, maybe about a week ago. And, most of these videos have been the do's and don'ts and more technical stuff about buying a house. But the question was simply, how do I buy a house? A great question. Um, and, you know, we could do a 3-hour video here on how to buy a house, but we're going to stick to the Coles Notes versions and just do the bare basics. And so the first thing that a person needs to do and how to buy a house is make the decision, I want to be an owner. So maybe it's, I don't want to live with my parents anymore. Maybe it's, I just don't want to pay people rent anymore and have no return on my investment. But that's the number one thing, is making that decision that, you know what, I want to buy a house or an acreage or whatever the case may be. And it's relatively simple and it's relatively complex. But the second decision you're going to make is whether or not you're going to buy a house privately or use a realtor. Obviously, I'm going to say use a realtor. There are some pitfalls a person can fall into if you're doing it yourself. And one of the most common ones I've seen is people paying way too much. If you're not up to speed on pricing and what things sell for, which, we have an information system on our computer that tells us exactly what listed properties sell for. That's not accessible to your average person. So, you might not have the most accurate information. Joe's house is for sale for $320,000 down the street. Does not mean Joe's house sells for $320,000. So if you're basing your asking price on that, and then as a buyer you go in and you pay close to that price, and Joe got $220,000 for his house, you've overpaid. So that's one of the large pitfalls. Got through that. Obviously, I'm going to say get yourself a good realtor, someone who's willing to spend some time with you, possibly even do some education with you prior to going through the process of buying a home. Someone you feel comfortable with, someone with experience, and get that relationship set up so that you can move forward. Obviously, like our office, I'm more than willing to sit down with people and do a more comprehensive tutorial on what to do and how to buy. But and if anyone wants to do that, definitely give our office a call. I'd be more than happy to do that. And it's free of charge. It's just, that's something we need to do to educate people in the buying process. So you made the decision, you found yourself a realtor. Probably one of the first things a realtor is going to tell you to do is talk to a lender about how much you can actually afford. We can do a pretty good pre-qualification ourselves on what you can afford, but I'm still going to suggest talking to your lender. If you have a good relationship with your bank, definitely deal with your bank. If you're more apprehensive, if you aren't in a good relationship with one bank or another, there are mortgage brokers as well. difference being is that a mortgage broker can quite often sell you a variety of different mortgages from a variety of different lending institutions versus your current bank or a bank. So, you've gone through that process, you've talked to a lender, they tell you this is your budget. Now we know what we're working with. A lot of times what I've seen in the past little while too is there are people, and there are a ton of websites that have listed properties. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't have current listed properties. So just last week I had someone inquiring on a home that had sold virtually 5 years ago, but it was still showing on their website. What I would suggest, even though I find it a difficult website to deal with, is looking on Realtor.ca. It is going to be the most accurate in terms of what's on the market, what has recently sold, what has offers. So that's where I think a person should start shopping. With your realtor, I would also suggest too is going through your wishes and your wants and letting them know what you're interested in. And there's a difference between wishes and needs. Do you need 4 bedrooms? Do you want 4 bedrooms? Do you absolutely need a garage? Do you want a garage? These are the sorts of details. Fireplaces, ceramic tile floor, whatever the case may be. You may find that, your wishes might not work with your budget, but we're probably going to be able to help you find a house that you're happy with inside your budget. Now, you may find one house on Realtor.ca and you go, oh my God, that's my favorite house of the entire world. I want to buy that house. Let's go look at that house. I want to buy that house. I'm still going to suggest to you, look at 3 or 4. Even if it's one, pictures might be deceiving. There's a variety of filtering agents out there that, when people post the pictures, once they're filtered, the houses can look remarkably different than how they actually are in real life. So I'm still suggesting looking at 3 or 4 houses, even if you've been quite decisive in saying this is the house I want. Even for pricing wise, just cost comparison between a few houses anyhow, gives you a better idea of what the house you want actually is worth. So that then goes to going forward, making an appointment with your realtor. In High Prairie, we try to give quite a bit of list time to our listed properties for appointments. I would suggest, if you can give 24 hours to your realtor to arrange showings, that would be great. There are times too where there are tenants in houses, and if there are tenants, we absolutely have to give 24 hours notice. So that's why, giving some time for the realtor to set up appointments, great idea. So we're going to go look at the houses, spend an afternoon, look at 4. I've seen people look at 10. Great idea. Take a notepad with you, write some notes on the houses as you're looking at them, because after a while, it's going to be, did that purple house have the fireplace that was triangular, or was that the green house? So it is probably best make some notes as you go. The end result is obviously we want to get to one of these. So we'll go through that later on. Once you've looked at houses and you've made the decision, this is the house that I want to buy, is with the assistance of your realtor, is establishing what you're going to make as an offer. Now, that can be problematic in some cases, depending on, we as agents have to follow the law of agency. We, depending on situations, whether it's our listing or not, we may be able to give you definitive advice, or we may have to say, my job is to give you historical information, statistical information, and let the deal come together as it does. So we're going to get into pricing. We'll talk about, and I'm going to go through the form really briefly, so that you sort of have an idea of what to look for as you're going. And there's conditions, there's terms, but we'll get into that as we go through the contract. It's 17 pages, and it requires a blood test and a written and oral exam to be able to fill one out. All lies. I just lied to you. It's pretty simple, but there are some pitfalls in it that, again, you know, you definitely, I would really strongly encourage someone not to go to a real estate office and say, hey, print me off one of those contracts so I can do it myself. You're going to get in trouble. So the purchase contract itself, pretty simple. You're not going to be able to see it very well, but we're going to start with, you know, it's got the names of the seller, name of the buyer. It's obviously, it's going to have the address on it. These unattached goods, so we call them chattels as well. And what those are things that aren't bolted to a wall, nailed to a floor, that a person could easily take with them when they leave the house. So typically chattels are, you know, fridge, stove, washer, dryer, things of that nature that you may or may not want to be in the home when you buy it. That's entirely up to you. But I would suggest, you know, unless you want to spend $10,000 on new appliances, is, you know, have those items put into the contract. And most often people selling are leaving that stuff behind anyhow. We're moving down, we'll have established a purchase price. Now, most often a deal will go back and forth in negotiation a couple times. Rarely is it people pay full list price right off the hop. Although there are times, if it's a multiple offer situation, you may even pay more than list price. So we try and avoid multiple offer situations. Excuse me. If you're a buyer, because that's just going to cost you more. Just a quick sort of rule of thumb to work with is, if you like the house, most likely someone else will like the house as well. So I know sometimes it's convenient to, well, you know, I'll come back on Thursday and write up an offer on Thursday. Well, if it's Monday and you like the house, make the offer Monday. Don't wait. It could cost you lots of money. So, purchase price. I think our latest data is houses will sell at about 95 to 96% of list price. So the price you see on Realtor.ca is historically prices are going to sell, you know, about that 4% less. So we write an offer up. This is the price we're willing to pay. The realtors, and it might be your realtor, it might be a different realtor, goes to the listing, the owners, and says, this is what someone's willing to pay. And typically they go, that's a nice try, but that's not enough. So then what they'll do is strike out that number and put in a number that's acceptable to them. Goes back and forth until we get a number nailed down. And like I said, I'm going to try and do Cole's Notes, and I realize I'm getting really long-winded. So we're going to speed things up a little bit. And the next thing we talk about is completion date. And that's the day that you're going to move into your home. I know there are a couple people watching. If you have any questions while I'm doing this, definitely fire away, and I'll see if I can fit that in there. And after purchase price, we talk about deposit. So when we make offers, we need to have a deposit. And what we typically, I would suggest to people, is make it large enough to legitimize your offer. You know, you don't have to necessarily give the realtor 5% down for your home, but making an offer with a too small of deposit generally just means the seller is probably going to go, is that really going to occur? Can they really come up with the money for the down payment to get their financing if, you know, they're struggling to come up with a reasonable deposit? So give the realtor a good initial deposit. So the next thing we're going to talk about are conditions. And those are the things where we say, I'll buy the house if. So one is financing. That's the most common condition, is financing. So what that means is, yes, I'll buy the house if I can get a mortgage. But you're going, hey, you already said go get a pre-approval. You're right, that's a pre-approval. It is not an approval of a mortgage. I have seen things where people have been pre-approved, and then when it came time, the bank said, we just don't want to invest in that style of house. We don't want to invest in that neighborhood, whatever the case may be, and the mortgage gets declined. So a pre-approval is not an approval. So we most often want to put a finance condition in there so that you're covered, like you have some security in that. The other most common condition is a home inspection. And here's my thing. I sell them, I don't build them. So I may see things in a home that are problematic. I may miss things in a home that are problematic. I'm not going to step out beyond my professional boundaries and say, absolutely, this is good, or absolutely, that is bad, because I'm just not that qualified. So, again, I build them, or I sell them, I don't build them. Getting a licensed home inspector, don't get your cousin's, friend's, nephew's brother to do it for you. Pay the money, get a qualified home inspector to do an inspection and establish whether or not you really want to buy the house. It's kind of the sacred duty of a home inspector to find something wrong. So even in a virtually new home, you'll probably find a few things minimally that are wrong with the house. In an older home, it's probably going to scare the hell out of you. And don't sweat it. Even though there are lots of things there that are showing up as deficiencies or problem areas, typically a lot of those are smaller and easily rectifiable. So although when you get your inspection, it comes in a big book and it's going to have lots of glaring errors in the home, it's generally not that bad. And we often suggest people to actually go through the home with the home inspector so that the inspector can say, yeah, this isn't perfect, but it's $4.85 to change that out. So the oral part of the inspection can be very reassuring, where the written document is going to scare the pants off you, just about guaranteed, and even on a virtually new home. So we're going through that. Terms. We don't frequently see terms in a contract, but they're there, and that's if you want someone to do something. If you wanted them to paint a bedroom brilliant purple, not sure why, but if you did, you could put that in a term as that, I'll buy the house, you're going to paint that room purple. Try and keep those to a minimum. Then we've got a lot of signatures, and that is what we take to the seller and try and negotiate a deal. Once that's all done and we have an accepted offer, we'll assist buyers in getting the documents to their lenders, and assist the buyers in finding an appropriate home inspector to get the inspection. And once those are successful, both parts, is we will draft some documents to go to the lawyers. You're gonna have to pay a lawyer. It's Alberta. It's the law. Sorry guys, can't get around it. So we'll draft documents, send it to the lawyers, and then it's time to start packing, because now we're moving forward to the possession date. Possession date, great idea to do a walkthrough. Houses typically close at about noon, and you want to know that the house is substantially how you viewed it. So on that day of possession, doing a walkthrough, and then your realtor can give you keys. One of the things our office does that no one else is doing is we provide our buyers, and this is regardless of if it's any office's listing. If you buy through our office, we give you $1,000 in coupons to local businesses. And, those partner businesses share the cost, and they're just happy to have a shot at some new business. And we give that $1,000. There's a bunch of different things. If you want a list, I think you can give our office a call. We'll provide a list of who our partner businesses are. They're all great people, all great businesses. And then you start moving your stuff. That's the one part where we don't help you. I'm old. I've got a bad back. And I just can't do that all the time. So you're on your own on the moving, and then you are on your own to enjoy your own home. So that is definitely a Coles Notes version of how to buy a house. It's not comprehensive. It's not specific. It's really not tailored to your needs or anyone's needs. But I thought that was a really good question. How do you buy a home? And that's what I'm going to suggest. So the other thing I'm going to suggest is give our office a call if you are interested in buying or selling. 536-0021 is our phone number. And even if it's just answering some questions, we would be glad to help. You people that are watching right now, go outside. It's a really nice day. And enjoy yourself. I'll be back. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.